Okay, in this video I'm going to talk to you about validating graphics. To this point we've got a project. In this case I'm using this KUMed project. Already exists. It's a standard graphic project that's been done already. But I've done the bindings, so now I want to validate against the database. So the way that is done is in using the MSEA Validator tool here, which is the shortcut, or you can go to Tools, MSEA Validator. And this is a tab that gets added, and it allows you to select the graphics and validate. But just want to show you before we do this, if I go to All Systems tab, I can see there's nothing green as far as bindings go. Nothing's been validated yet, so it's all blank. So you open up the validator and select what type of graphics you're going to validate. In this case it's standard graphics, and then I'm going to select add documents, and the documents in this case is graphics in the SCT database. So this is actually looking within the SCT database at this point of all the graphics that have been saved. So what I'm going to do is I can pick and choose which graphics to do, or I can select them all. I'll select maybe all these air handlers at once. So I've got my documents selected. Now it's just a matter of running the validation. So I can click that, and it runs through and it validates all the bindings within the SCT graphics against the database. And I can see a few of these have errors. So I can click on these and go directly to the errors, and I can see that AHU12 has an invalid binding, which means a broken binding in the existing graphics. And you can see what the actual binding is. And I can go back to that system graphic and edit that binding. Go to actually AHU12. And I can see here's AHU12 points here, and the validator is telling me that there's an econ enable in the graphic, and we can go down here and verify that there is no econ enable in this system anymore. Also, you notice I've got green checkboxes here in the system for AHU12. That tells me that that was validated to the graphic. So there's a binding there to all these points that are green in a graphic. I can click on these graphics, and over here in this other set of tabs, this tells me what graphics are being used here on these points. So all these points I'm selecting are bound in AHU12 in this case. And I can go to another air handler over here and click and see these are bound to AHU4. Likewise, I can go to the graphics and click on an air handler graphic, and I can see in the object list tab every point object that is bound within that AHU10 graphic. And I can also see which graphic links within that graphic exist. So within AHU10 there's a legend link and a campus link that goes to another graphic. So you can see I can get end-to-end tracking of the points that are validated with the binder. And these other green items, there were no issues with validation. Those all passed, so there's no broken bindings. You get some other information here in these tabs. Warnings would give you some kind of rule that may or may not be an error, but you should definitely review the warnings that come in through here. The info tab gives you information on every object that was validated, so you can look at all the point objects within the graphic and where they exist within the graphic and find out what actually exists. You can actually use this information if you sort by the shape value, which is the item reference name. You can look for duplicate points in here, or points that may be in a different system that are still valid data points. So that's another way to kind of double check, make sure you've bound this particular AHU13 to the correct system. You should see that controller name be consistent throughout. And this last tab gives you kind of a formatted look and feel that you can actually print if you want to. So that was an example of doing a set of systems, unique systems, and validating them individually. Another typical use case is where you have template graphics, aliased template graphics for like VAV boxes or VFD drives, where you have one template graphic and a bunch of systems aliased to that template. So in that case, I'm going to remove all the documents here, and the first step you want to do for validating alias graphics is to first validate all the templates. So there's several templates in here. I'm going to go ahead and select those. And you want to validate those first and get them in the database, because the other systems will reference those templates, and if they're not there, you're going to get a bunch of errors. So first select all the templates, run through a validation, and I can see I've got some with errors already. So I want to fix those and make sure these are all either yellow or green. The yellow just indicates there's some warnings in there. Since it's an alias template, a warning will be typical here, because it's finding these objects within the graphic that aren't complete because they're templates. Okay, so we validated the templates. Let's clear those out, and then we can add in all the graphics that may be referencing those templates. So I'm going to grab all these floor plans here and just validate those. So I know these floor plans have references to VAVs in them, and the only different thing I'm going to do here is follow links. So that'll tell me, it'll tell the validator that when it finds a object that is referencing a template graphic through an alias, that it's going to go and verify that aliased system to the template all the way through. So every point in the template will get verified through all the points. So I'll show you what that does. Run the validation, and these take a little bit longer because they're going end to end. They're doing the floor plan plus every single VAV reference to the template. some errors down here that I can see here that on the 7th floor I've got some AV11 bindings on a template that don't exist for this ISO reheat. So if you look in the details, the shape, the file name for this shape tells you first the template that it's referencing and then the aliased system. So these 4 controllers do not have an AV11 defined for them. So that's why they're coming up as errors. So I can go to A35 and find some of these VMAs here. And I can see that all these now have bindings shown. And the ones that are missing, those were left out on purpose because they don't really need to be in the graphic. And I can click on these and then go to my graphic list link here, and I can see that this particular VAV is using this template, and it's also on this 7th floor northwest graphic. This is real nice when you're trying to locate where VAVs are actually bound on graphics. And finally, after you've done all your validation and you want to save a copy of what you validated for this particular database, you can just save this file as an XML file. And that'll save that off, and you can pull that up at a later date and compare validations if you need to.